The war had ended 3 cycles ago, but trust remained a fragile thing between species. Commander Hale stood at the edge of the human outpost, watching the massive figure of Rokar approach through the crimson dust of Kepler 442b. The Alpha was 8 feet of corded muscle and silver fur, his amber eyes carrying the weight of 1,000 battles and the wisdom of his pack's survival. "Commander," Rokar's voice rumbled like distant thunder, the translator chip rendering his growls into comprehensible speech. "I come with a request that may seem unusual." Hale had learned to read the body language of the Valorian species during the war. The slight tilt of Rokar's ears, the way his claws remained sheathed, these were signs of respect, perhaps even vulnerability. It was rare to see an Alpha show such deference. "Speak freely, Rokar, we're allies now." The Alpha's tail swished once, twice. Behind him, partially hidden by his massive frame, Hale could see movement. Small forms, perhaps 24 of them, barely reaching their father's hip. "The cubs," Rokar began, his voice carrying an emotion the translator struggled to convey. "They know only war. They were born in bunkers, raised on rations and survival training. Now that peace has come, they are lost. They fight among themselves. They do not understand discipline without enemy at the gates." Hale's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "You want us to train them?" "Your soldiers," Rokar said, stepping aside to reveal the cubs fully, "turned the tide of war not with superior weapons, but with something we Valorians had forgotten in our centuries of conflict. You call it discipline, unity, the ability to work as one, not from instinct or pack bonds, but from training and trust." He paused, his amber eyes meeting Hale's gray ones. "Teach my cubs what it means to be strong in peace, not just in war." The request was unprecedented. The human-Valorian alliance was barely 6 months old. Many on both sides still harbored suspicions. And now the Alpha of the largest remaining Valorian pack wanted to hand over his young to former enemies. Commander Hale looked at the cubs. They were fidgeting, play-fighting, completely unaware of the significance of this moment. One tumbled into another, and suddenly 3 were rolling in the dust, snarling and snapping. "How long?" Hale asked. "1 full cycle. 80 Earth days." Hale extended his hand, a human gesture Rokar had learned well. "We'll teach them, Alpha. You have my word." The massive paw engulfed Hale's hand, careful not to let the claws touch skin. The first week was chaos. Sergeant Martinez had compared it to herding cats, except these cats were 4 feet tall, had retractable claws and could bite through steel. The cubs didn't understand commands. They didn't understand formations. They understood only pack hierarchy and immediate survival. Commander Hale watched from the observation deck as his training team worked with seemingly infinite patience. They started with the basics, not military basics, but foundational basics, teaching the cubs to listen, to focus, to understand that discipline wasn't weakness but a different kind of strength. By week 2, something shifted. A cub named Kira, identified by the white stripe across her snout, began to understand. When Sergeant Martinez demonstrated a simple formation, she copied it. Not perfectly, but she tried. The other cubs watched, and slowly instinct kicked in. Not pack instinct, but something newer, learning instinct. Hale remembered what Rokar had said about humanity's strength. It wasn't superior technology. During the war, the Valorians had learned that humans did something unique. They could turn strangers into brothers through shared hardship and training. They could forge unity from diversity. Week 5 brought the breakthrough. The cubs had learned to march. Not just walk in a line, but truly march, synchronized, purposeful, together. Hale watched as they drilled in the courtyard, their young voices calling out cadences that Sergeant Martinez had taught them, translated into growls and barks that somehow maintained the rhythm. But it was more than marching. The cubs had learned to help each other. When young Torvan fell during an obstacle course, 3 others stopped to help him up, just as they'd seen human soldiers do. When rations were distributed, they waited their turn instead of fighting over food. They were learning what it meant to be strong together. On the 80th day, Rokar returned. Commander Hale stood beside the Alpha as they watched the cubs, no longer quite so small, no longer quite so wild, assembled in the courtyard. Every human soldier who had worked with them was present, standing at attention along the walls. Formation, present. Sergeant Martinez's voice rang out. As one, the cubs moved. They formed perfect lines, their young backs straight, their clawed feet positioned precisely. Then at Martinez's command they began to march. Left, right, left, right. The sound of their footfalls echoed in perfect unison across the courtyard. Their eyes were forward, focused, disciplined. They moved past Rokar, and not one broke formation to run to their father, though Hale could see the longing in some of their eyes. But they held. Because that's what soldiers did. That's what they had learned. When they completed their demonstration and stood at attention, Rokar's eyes gleamed with something that might have been tears. If Valorians cried, "You have given me back my cubs," he said to Hale, his voice thick with emotion. "But you have given them something more. You have given them a future." Hale smiled. "They earned it themselves, Alpha. We just showed them the way." Rokar watched as Martinez called dismissal, and immediately the cubs broke formation. Not into chaos, but into organized enthusiasm. They ran to their father, but even in their excitement, they maintained awareness of each other, of their space, of the discipline that had become part of them. "When the council meets next," Rokar said quietly, "there will be those who question the alliance, who say humans and Valorians are too different to truly stand together." He looked at his cubs, then at the human soldiers who had trained them. "I will show them this. I will show them what we can become when we learn from each other." Commander Hale nodded. In 80 days, these cubs had learned more than military discipline. They had learned that strength came in many forms, that different species could teach each other, that peace required its own kind of courage. As the sun set over Kepler 442b, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, Hale watched the cubs march out with their father, still in formation even as they left, still maintaining the discipline they had earned. The war was over, but the real victory was just beginning, and it marched in perfect formation toward tomorrow.